So, you or your company are thinking of purchasing immovable property in Bulgaria. Record keeping regarding immovable property in Bulgaria has some unique elements which you may benefit from knowing. For example, the way in which the official property registers in Bulgaria are organized. This is what we'll be discussing. Conceptually, think about the Bulgarian Property Register as you would about the Grundbuch in Germany. That being said, three characteristics of the Bulgarian Property Register make it quite unique. First, the Bulgarian Property Register is an official register. Therefore, the information in it has legal significance. However, second, the Bulgarian Property Register gives information about documents and not about rights. Third, the Bulgarian Property Register was historically organized based on persons and not based on properties. We can look at each of these three characteristics individually and see what they mean in a practical sense. There are basically two types of registers throughout the world, official ones or private ones. In the broadest of terms, one key difference between the two types is this. With official registers, information recorded in them has legal significance, whereas with private registers, information recorded in them has a purely informative nature. For the purposes of this video, think of private registers broadly as you would about golden pages. The fact that golden pages says your company's CEO is Mark Twain does not mean that a contract signed by Mark Twain on your company's behalf would be legally binding on your company, if your company never actually appointed him as CEO. Now contrast that with a certificate from the official company register. If a certificate from the official company register says Mark Twain is your company's CEO, then contracts signed on your company's behalf by this Mark Twain can, under certain circumstances, be legally binding on your company, even if your company never actually appointed him as CEO. So, information in official registers has legal significance in some ways, whereas information in private registers, not so much. It's the same with official and private property registers. The Bulgarian Property Register is an official register, so the information recorded in it does have legal significance, and whatever information is recorded in it is presumed to be known or to have been possible to have been known to anyone. So that is broadly the practical significance of the first characteristic. Then we come to the question, what kind of information is recorded in the Bulgarian Property Register? If you have had to deal with property registers in France or Germany or Spain, you may think that an official register should contain information about the piece of immovable property, like address, surface area, borders, perhaps some kind of unique property number, so that you can identify the particular piece of immovable property. And then you might also expect that the property register should also contain information about who owns the property and who has rights in rem over this property, the right to use it, the right to pass through it, etc. However, the official property register in Bulgaria does not tell you who the owner is. The Bulgarian property register is official, but it contains information about documents, not about rights. In Germany, you can ask the Grundbuch who is the owner of this property, and the Grundbuch can issue a certificate saying who the owner is. In the field owners, the Grundbuch may say Hans Zimmer. So now you know that the owner of this property is this person called Hans Zimmer, and you are not expected to assess whether that is true. If the official register tells you that, then you can assume that this person has the in rem rights as owner of that property. In Bulgaria, there is no procedural way to ask the property register who is the owner of this property. There is no such form. The property register will not issue an explicit signed stamped document containing a legally binding answer to that question. That's because the Bulgarian property register stores information about documents and not about rights. What the property register allows you to ask is, what documents potentially related to this property have been registered by its owners, past or present, and or by any person who had other rights in rem concerning that property. Now for that, there is a form. It looks like this. And here is where we come to the significance of organizing documents by person instead of organizing them by property. In this form, over here, you are asked who you think the owner is. So the property register can check its records under that person's name and see whether that person has been associated with registered documents and whether any of these documents bore any relation to that property. And that's because historically, since the year 1878, Bulgarian property registers were organized by persons and not by properties. So you can see all the documents concerning immovable properties which a given person, say Vladimir Alexandrov, ever signed regarding any and all properties. You can ask the property register to identify from among these documents only those which relate to a specific piece of immovable property, say building number 12345. But what you cannot do is make the property register assess based on those documents who the owner of building number 12345 is at the moment. What the property register issues could be interpreted in simplified terms as conveying the following message. Here are all the documents signed by these people potentially concerning this property. Read the documents and make up your own mind who you think the owner seems to be. If you forgot to tell us to also check under somebody else's name, we bear no responsibility. If you did not describe the immovable property correctly, and as a result we didn't correctly identify all relevant documents, we bear no responsibility. If any of the registered documents were issued based on wrong information, we bear no responsibility. If any of the registered documents were null and void, we bear no responsibility. You read the documents, you make the assessment, you make up your own mind about rights. We are only responsible for documents. We are not responsible for rights, which is to say we are not responsible about what these documents say or mean and what rights are proclaimed, created or transferred through them. So, what you're expected to do is identify, seek out, read all current and previous documents and make an assessment about whether somebody is the owner or not. Naturally, you can ask a notary public to make that assessment for you, or an attorney, or your in-house lawyers, or your broker. However, that takes time and it could require a lot of reading and working hours. Many investors from abroad frequently ask, why are due diligence reports concerning immovable properties for our expansion in Bulgaria taking more billable hours than the reports in Germany or Austria or France or Spain? Well, now you know one of the reasons, because the Bulgarian Property Register is very much unlike the one in Germany or France or Spain. Yes, the Bulgarian Property Register is an official register. The information in it has legal significance. But that information concerns documents and not rights. And it was historically organized by persons and not by properties. Of course, as you might imagine, there are a number of other intricacies associated with all of this. For example, what is the legal significance of the unsigned, unstamped electronic excerpts concerning specific properties, which are indeed obtainable through the Property Register's electronic database? Or, what is the role of the notary in all of this, and what does the notary's obligation to assess documents prior to a transfer of immovable property actually statutorily include? Or what could it be made to include? What happens if a specific property underwent changes throughout the years, thereby altering its description and/or parameters? These and many more issues can indeed be relevant, but we obviously do not have the time to go into each one of them. That being said, it is hoped that you now have a somewhat basic understanding about the characteristics of the Bulgarian Property Register and the practical meaning of those characteristics. Thank you for your time and good luck.